to our education program titled The Original Native American, Then and Now. I'm your host, Gretchen Schmitt, on the board of directors at the Allegheny-Kiski Valley Historical Society and Museum. And today my guests are HeleneSmith, writer and author of Eureka, The Crow Nation, Then and Now, and the owner of McDonald's Sword Publishing. I'd like to welcome you. And also my other featured guest today is Michael Muchnock II. He's a living historian and co-founder and also the co-builder of Nashkahoney Town and First American Village located in Black Lick, Pennsylvania. He's also the singer and songwriter of the Bolivian flute playing that you hear in the background. And he's also known as White Four Wings. Well, welcome both of you today. This presentation is going to be a question-answer presentation and oral discussion on why Native American history is alive and well today. We're always making the headlines. Just recently on AOL, we have a headline regarding an AOL News today. Did the secret society swipe Geronimo's skull? Well, this is in the news, and we will talk about the history of First Americans, and I would like to start the discussion with Helene. And my first question for you, Helene, is since the title American Indian is a misnomer having nothing to do with the country of India, what, in your opinion, is the best term to use?
Well, that's a good question, Gretchen. Ideally, it's nice to ask the people what they want to go by. But you can't always have that choice. I did have that choice some time ago when I was working with the traditionalist American Indians on the Absaroka, or the Crow Reservation. And I asked one of the members what they call themselves, and he said Earth People. And as I say, that's the ideal way to do it. But when we don't have a consensus opinion of everyone, then I always use the rule of thumb for any question like this. What is the most respectful thing? What is the kind name? And I think that's a good answer. So for many years, the American Africans and American Indians have been named different things. I know in my lifetime I've seen a lot of transition. And excuse me, the red man was no longer used very often, but Pearl Buck, the Nobel Prize winner, chided Americans for calling Asians yellow, and now we still have a way to go. But in general, as far as American Indian goes, they don't really want to be called Indians because of the misnomer. Mm-hmm. So you can say Native Americans, but then many people say we're all Native Americans. Mm-hmm. All the citizens are Native Americans. So you can say original Native Americans or indigenous people. That sometimes becomes a little cumbersome. Mm-hmm. Or you can just say First Americans.
Very good. Helene, what went wrong in the relationship between the First Americans and the European immigrants?
Well, in the beginning, the European immigrants behaved as invaders and occupiers.
Okay, Michael, I can ask you, what was that behavior? You know, was it the same during the Lewis and Clark expedition?
That's exactly the point. It depends on the time period that we're talking about. And the Lewis and Clark expedition occurred about 120 years after William Penn purchased land from the Delaware Nation, and 50 years after the French and Indian War. An interesting point in 1756, according to Charles Sipes in his book, Indian Chiefs of Pennsylvania, published in 1927, Pennsylvania declared war on the Delawares and offered bounties for scalps of Indians, even those of women. But getting back to the question of behavior of the Lewis and Clark expedition, in 1804 at St. Louis, Missouri, geography ended, and everything after that was a myth. The Indian, called Indian at the time, whispered of the shining or Rocky Mountains, and President Jefferson wondered if this was merely another Indian legend. So he gathered an expedition together, and it needed to be mapped mainly because the British were rumored of wanting to occupy the Rocky Mountains and claim that as their own. So he wanted to get it quickly. And the American 15 states had to be friendly and agreeable to all those nations or tribes in the western part of the continental divide.
Okay, very good. Helene, my next question for you is, what can America do to help First Native Americans?
Well, I think we need to start with the Bureau of Indian Affairs in the Department of the Interior. This is a regulatory agency, and according to the government relations with the First Americans, they were supposed to come under the Congress. The Congress put them under an unelected regulatory agency that is quite corrupt, and it has been a real problem for them.
So Native Americans should go ahead and take control over their own destiny.
Oh, yes.
In a sense.
And the BIA really needs to be appropriated, and so they can choose their own destiny and run their own lives instead of having puppet governments and that sort of thing. And you see, the problem is, every year we're so forgetful. We see in the news that all this money for their trust funds, that's the money they receive for their land. All that has been lost and mismanaged, stolen. And then we say to ourselves, how awful. And then we forget about it, and the next year rolls around, and they repeat the same thing. So it has never changed for the better all these years. And secondly, we also need to stop using American Indians as mascots for sports.
I think so too. Helene, how can First Native Americans help themselves and America for the betterment of all of us?
Well, first of all, they can join together in unity for their own inherent sovereign rights. They are nations, legitimate nations, and we need to recognize that and respect that. And what they have done for us, they have inspired the Constitution, our particular type of democracy, and through the League of the Iroquois Indians, the Six Nations. And by the way, the word nation, we should say nation instead of tribes. It's more respectful and it's more up to date. The Germanic people were divided into tribes, tribal nations, and we no longer speak about them as being tribes today. We speak of them as a nation. And I think for respect, we need to do more of that sort of thing.
Very good. Michael, any thoughts about helping?
Well, I think at some time in everyone's life, they kind of ask themselves, why am I here? The philosophical question. And I believe in my heart that we are here to help each other. I financially, in a small way, help to support the elders and some progressive Indian schools that promote the Native American children's culture, and as well as even allowing and having and sponsoring powwows.
Very good. And I've been to many powwows right here in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania. We have powwow August 20th and 21st in Saltsburg, Pennsylvania, that's sponsored by Thunder Mountain Lenape Nation. Helene, I have another question for you. How were first Americans conquered?
Well, this may come as a surprise to many people, but the first Americans never were conquered militarily. And the Army was the first ones to admit this. They knew that indigenous people knew the territory, and they were well skilled in the strategy of military. They created the wave, they created camouflage, surprise attack, and they were so good. As we remember, the British coming out in the bright red coats, but they were camouflaged in the trees, and they were many times successful. And they were completely familiar, and they never were conquered.
That's a very important point.
But
So,
because they weren't conquered militarily, the government then decided to write treaties, make treaties with them for their land, doing it so-called legitimately, but then they broke more than 400 treaties. And that's another problem.
and their broken promises.
And the treaty is the highest law of land, even higher than eminent domain.
Well, we have a mutual friend who resides in New Kensington. Her name is Renee Woodruff, and she's a student. And she had painted and drew some wonderful pictures for us. And this is more of a self-portrait of Renee. And she is Sitting Bull's great-granddaughter. And this self-portrait says, "Never again trust." And that was done with pencil on paper. And she did a wonderful collage of her great-grandfather, Sitting Bull, here. And she's also a film student and a wonderful writer. And she's written many essays on the history of Native American people. And hopefully we'll have her as a guest speaker at the next event. The next question I have for you, Helene, is what is the first American religion? And the second question, I'm going to ask it all at one time. I'd like to know that about what is Native American religion, but also, many people called them, heathens and infidels, and then they also formed them into tribes instead of a nation, and so therefore they weren't given their respect as a people.
Well, there is no word for religion among American Indian languages. And
That's very interesting. I would never think of that. I would have thought they had a specific religion, like most cultures.
right. Well, it's more of a spirituality, a closeness to earth. And by the way, I would like to say here we should all capitalize earth out of respect. Because of their spirituality, they cannot separate it from their culture. There's no reason for it. And it's amazing that 635 Native American nations, among all of those, none of the indigenous people have fought over religion or spirituality.
Like we are, fighting in Iraq, and there's definitely strife going over different,
Yes,
types of
exactly.
religion, Christian, Judeo, and Muslim.
The
So-
Abrahamic religions.
Right.
But see, they do not have a law religion, and that's the key.
Difference.
When
Okay.
there are no disputable creeds and controversial dogma. So therefore, their religion and culture is entwined. You cannot separate it, and it's all from nature.
That's very interesting. A lot of people don't recognize that.
That's true.
So,
So there are no infidels or no heathens among them.
and they look at every person with respect.
Yes.
Everyone's family. Michael, can you add anything to this question regarding religion of the Native American people? Since we know they're, what is it based on that you want to talk about today?
Well, getting back to kind of like referring to what Helene said, Moses did not write the Old Testament. Jesus did not write the New Testament. Socrates did not write his things too that we speak of. But it's a really touchy subject among most traditionalists. Some will not even talk about it at all. But in my research, according to the compilations of Dr. B.L. Gregory and Dr. M.C. Sims, they write in their book, The Good of the Indian, around 1905, that the Sioux, whose name was Ohisa, was quoted as saying, "In the life of an Indian, there is only one inevitable duty, the duty of prayer, the daily recognition of the unseen and eternal." But it must be stated that his daily devotions were more important than his daily food.
That's very interesting. Can you tell me about what rituals did they perform?
Again, Gretchen, these things were not generally spoken about to outsiders, but because of the fulfilled prophecy of the white buffalo at the end of this last century, many believe that information must be communicated. And this is the age of information, after all. But the next prophecy of the Native Americans will be shining examples by their devotion to the Great Spirit, and will bring peace and enlightenment to our brothers and sisters, aunts and uncles, grandfathers and grandmothers around the entire globe. I invite viewers present and watching to spiritually light the sacred pipe with me, which is the symbol of peace, brotherhood, counsel, and prayer, and smoke first to the Great Spirit in heaven above, then to the four winds, his messengers, and to Mother Earth, through whom he furnishes our food, passing the pipe in a circle from east, south, west to west. Be with us, Great Spirit, and bless us.
Thank you, Michael. Helene, I'm going back to you, and I would like to know a very controversial issue today regarding church and state, and I want to know, what about it? What about the separation of church and state?
Well, again, that doesn't pertain to the indigenous people, because the word church is really foreign to them. They have their sacred sun dances and sacred sweat lodges. And here in the Pittsburgh area, along the rivers, and they worship every day, not just one day. And these, of course, rivers have retained the names of the first Americans, such as the Monongahela, Ohio, and the Allegheny rivers. But getting back to what Michael said, I think peace is so important for all nations, internationally, and the nations in America, the nations within 635 within America, they are peaceful. Now, if we could just get everybody together, using the first Americans as an example, would be excellent.
Very good. And Michael, do you have any other thoughts?
Well, I feel that human beings, to be whole, must nurture mind, body, and spirit. As even the medical profession swiftly is under that understanding and moving towards this belief. Each soul must meet the morning sun, the new sweet earth, and the great silence alone, since each one of us will be departing this earth alone. Long before Columbus landed, a noble prayer was spoken and translated into the English language. It goes like this. Father, a needy one stands before thee. I that sing and make music is he. Now just as we should not be only mind, body, or spirit, our beliefs should be carried deep within our heart and by our example in daily life. Real religion must be universal, basic, and fundamentally acceptable to a world seeing a way out of dogma into truth. Avarice is the root of all evil, and we know that a lot of the problems occurred because of avarice, greed over the land. The culture of modern civilization is essentially materialistic. The culture of the ancient ways is, how much service have I rendered to my brother, to my sister, to my people? And his mode of thought, his life, his every act are given spiritual significance. Bufflao Child Longlands said to a minister in 1928, "Why do you tell us to be good? We Indians are not bad. We do not steal. We do not lie. And we take care of our old and our poor when they are helpless. We do not need that which you tell us about." "But," said the missionary, "there's only one God, and you must worship him." The old warrior said, "Then, if that is true, we Indians are worshiping the same God as you, only in a different way."
Makes a lot of sense when you say it like that. I have two more questions for you, Michael. And again, I want to thank both of you for going over this discussion in detail. Michael, what did the missionaries say
After that,
after that?
he told the chief, "Well, you must pray." But the chief said, "I do pray." And the chief's prayer went something like this. "Great Spirit, our Father, help us and teach us the way of the truth. Help me and my family and my tribe on our true Father's path, so that we may be in good condition in our bodies and in our minds. Teach all of the little ones in your way. Make peace on all the world. We thank you for the sun and the good summer weather, and we hope that they will bring good crops of grass for the animals and things to eat for all peoples."
Very good. And that can, simplify your lifestyle, just recognizing how important nature is to your everyday living. The last question I have for you, Michael, is, did the ancient ones, the first Americans, did they have a perfect society?
Not exactly perfect, but it was pretty close to perfect in their own circles. For example, if an individual went against the morality or wishes of society, everyone refused to talk to him. They wouldn't allow him to play any games with him or join in any of the festivities. And the children learned early that this type of punishment is more severe than getting physically beaten. And by the way, the original Americans were known not to beat their children, but to love them If the individual continued the wrong behavior, then of course he would be banished from the community, and that would be almost hell to many. So, to be away from family and friends. It has been said that the modern prison system is the largest reservation in America, and we must remember all those in lockdown, including Leonard Peltier, who was locked away in 1976. So, wish them well, and if you can contact them, they would love to hear from you. I pray for peace and love, mercy and forgiveness. Let us conserve our natural resources and use only what we need, not everything we want. And be one family in this home called Earth with a capital. Helene, good luck. As old Henry Old Coyote, the man you interviewed, once said, and I quote, "Others have their share of this earth. We too want to be part of it. We want our place in the sun." Now, all trees in the forest grow towards the sun. However, not every tree is straight. It goes the same way with people. There are some people that do wrong, some people that do right, some trees that grow straight, some that grow crooked. We're all here to help each other and understand each other. So, do the best you can.
Thanks to both our guests, HeleneSmith and Michael Muchnock II, for being so informative about Native American history and culture. We'd like to share with you some of the books that Helene has worked. Helene, would you mind picking up each book and name the title and also a brief description of each book?
This book, Apsaoka, Two Nation Then and Now, Mickey, Old Coyote, and I wrote. I wrote it, and he provided the information. We presented to all members of Congress, the President and Vice President, to help change things in the Bureau of Indian Affairs, and to it's just filled with information and pictures. Here's a picture of my co-author's father and mother. She was a silent movie star, beautiful woman. She lived to be 105. And then the other members of the family. And of course, one of the distinguishing features of the Crow or Apsaoka Nation are the elk teeth on their native dress.
Helene, can you put the book down and show me, when we talked about how the Crow Indian got their name, that story?
Oh, yes. It's a corruption of the Crow. Is not the real name of the Apsaoka Nation. When the French trappers came over, the first Apsaokas they saw gave a sign language of the flapping of the wings. And that meant an ancient raven, now extinct. But they, the French thought, it must be a crow. So that's how the name came about, and they don't particularly appreciate that. But now, because of this book, for the first time, the people on in the Apsaoka Nation are calling themselves by their original name. So that was good.
That's very good. So they're recognizing their identity.
Yes,
And it's,
very much so.
Through their own eyes, not through someone
Someone
else's.
Exactly.
I guess the next book I'd like for you to talk about, and I read all your books, but that one, Sundance, where it did talk about Rachel Carson and her environmental work. And could you tell us a little bit about Sundance?
Yes, I was contacted by, now Mickey Okayo was a Sundance leader of the Bufflao Nation, and I was contacted by another Sundance leader. They had a pesticide poisoning during a Sundance, and I went out to help them, and I said that maybe I can take pictures. And again, this was, I contacted the Bureau of Indian Affairs, the BIA, and finally, after a year or so, they investigated, and they found themselves quite innocent. I mean, it was, so that was an eye-opener for me.
Helene, you studying biology through your education and so forth, what are some of the environmental damaging effects of pesticide poisonings to the next generation?
Oh, the pesticide poisoning causes all kinds of diseases, with respiratory
problems.
And now, speaking about, besides pesticides, one of the big problems on the reservations is nuclear waste. This is a big problem all over the world. And besides using depleted uranium as ammunition, which causes deformities in children of those that get up the receiving end of it, and the soldiers themselves, our soldiers and Allied soldiers and all, it's the next generation. The children are deformed. It's
And we
horrible.
saw results of this with Agent Orange
Yes,
during Vietnam.
exactly.
I have personal friends and family that have been affected. Their children have been born with deformities
Right.
and mental difficulties and so forth. Now, Michael, I'm going to turn my attention to some of those wonderful Native American artifacts, and I would like to point out this special stone. Can you explain that to our studio audience?
This was a gift that Helene received, and it's a full grooved celt, and it would have gone on a stick like that. It's a beautiful specimen. It's very ancient. I don't know the age. It might be Neolithic, and it very well possibly is. But the edge is still relatively good on it, and it could actually chop wood or other things.
How about that projectile that you had made the handle for? If you could talk about that next.
Which one?
The one by the picture, the one that you handmade the handle, the projectile, right there by your glass. Right there, right, yeah.
This?
Right.
Oh no,
No.
this is not a projectile. It's not a an arrow point or a spear point. This is a Neolithic knife. It's approximately 7,000 years old. Obviously, the hide on it is not original. I put that on, but it's a very fine piece. And a friend of mine gave it to me, Butch Laney in Town, my co-founder, and he found it somewhere in Indiana.
How about this piece next?
This is.
Look at that.
This is a very interesting piece. When we talk about using natural resources, this baby is millions of years old. It is a tooth from a Myriopterus. These dinosaurs stood 16 foot tall, but it was worked to the point where you could hold it perfectly in your hand
As a tool. Okay.
and use it as a scraper for any type of hide, buffalo hide, whatever. Very sharp still to this day.
When we talk about nature, one of the other wonderful things that even today many people try to imitate animals, birds, and so forth. The first thing I would like you to do, Michael, is to show us and explain the turkey whistle And then I'd like you to do us a real big favor, the crow call. But first the turkey whistle, and then I'll show that to Helene. Okay.
Music was very, very important, and it still is important to the indigenous people in the respect that much of the music was to emulate or kind of mimic sounds of nature. And so the piece that I have here is familiar if you've ever eaten Thanksgiving dinner and had turkey. But this is from the wings. The wing bones are actually turned different than what you would see in the wing when you open it up. But this piece was used in ancient times and probably still is used today by some turkey hunters. And I'll demonstrate it for you. It sounds kind of like a turkey if I can get it to work right.
Just like a turkey. And I guess if you can share with us the crow call.
Well, Father Julian, a mentor of mine from St. Vincent College, where I graduated in '76. And prior to that, I went to the prep school. I was the last junior class before it closed down in 1971. Was a great scientist, a biologist, a naturalist. He and I used to take many walks together, and the crow call he taught me, I'm not sure if it brings them in or scares them away, but it goes like this.
It brings them in. I'm very fascinated with one of these artifacts, and that's the ball that you had found in Ligonier. You have to explain it. When I look at it, it looks like a small version of a baseball.
It's not a baseball. It is a stone. It's a well-polished stone. It was found in Ligonier. It's a rare artifact. You don't find too many of these. But I believe that it was used, it was covered with hide and most likely was used to play lacrosse with. There is some stories the ancient ones have told where a medicine man in his power was able to set it down and make that ball rise and float through the air. I haven't seen it done, but it is a neat artifact.
Okay. The next item I have is this looks like petrified. Is this driftwood? I'm not sure
Yes.
about it, but I hope that was it.
This is a piece that I found. The top part is stone, and I believe it was used as a scraper. The bottom part is not original to the piece. It is a piece of driftwood that I found, and I fastened the stone to the wood with a not Elmer's glue, but I used a combination of sap from a cherry tree. You mark a tree in the spring and it'll start bleeding. I used that sap. I also added some fine particles of flint shards in here. Something that they could have made, just without anything being available to them in the woods. But you can hold it and it just fits perfect in your hand. Great scraper.
Now, Michael, why are you also known as White Forwing?
White forewings.
Could you tell the story?
Yes. Back in 1997, I was invited to go to the Green Corn Festival along the Little Swickley Creek in Westmoreland County, and at which time I was named by White Forewings by the chief. He was the chief of the Loyal Hanna Band, Turtle Clan, Shawnee Nation. Matter of fact, he wanted me to have something Shawnee. He took an arm. He had two armbands on, and he gave me this armband, and I'm proud to wear it. And that's why I'm called White Forewings. The original naming came about in an unconventional teepee that we had made, and on the outside of the teepee, we saw a shadow of a large white butterfly. Well, we thought it was a large white butterfly, and since I was searching for the name, they said, "Aha, that's the sign. That's going to be your name, White Butterfly." But we went around to the outside, and it was a huge dragonfly. But we still kept the name. However, the problem comes about, as Latin is dead, the Shawnee language is also a dead language, meaning that there are no new words being introduced into the Shawnee language. So, White Forewings means white butterfly.
Very interesting. Helene, I guess we have two more books to look at. If you could give us information on So Circles the Eagle, and also your emblem book.
Well, So Circles the Eagle, the name Aaron King is a pen name of mine, but it's about the Jedediah Smith, and not too many people in the East know about Jedediah Smith, but in the West, so many landmarks are named after him, and he did similar to Lewis and Clark. He founded more passes and all, and but he didn't have Sacagawea to lead him, and this is a novel about his life. And this book is another Absaroka book, but this is a small book, a flag and emblem. And this is the Absaroka crest, and it's illustrated. I illustrated it and wrote it, and this has many teachers have liked this for their classroom.
Now, all these books can be purchased through any bookstore and through McDonald and Sword Publishing Company. And any additional information, if you have questions, you can reach us at whiteforewings@AOL.com. And also, Michael, you're also a drumming circle facilitator. And I wanted to finish the program and to thank all our guests and viewers. I hope you enjoyed a very educational and informative program on Native American history. And again, our program was detailed and entitled The Original Native American, Then and Now. Thank you so much.
Thank you.